Let me tell you about the night I almost quit my job. It still creeps me out just thinking about it. And I've never told anyone the full story. Not like this. This happened back in 2017, when I was working at this small indie game studio in Ash Pine, a quiet little town in Oregon. I was a game designer, mostly doing level layouts and debugging. The studio wasn't big, just a team of 8. And we worked out of this older office building on the second floor of what used to be a textile factory. The place always had this weird echo, even when it was full of people. Anyway, that particular week was brutal. We were crunching hard to meet a release deadline, and everyone was on edge. I had barely slept, surviving off coffee, vending machine snacks, and sheer anxiety. My best friend Lucas, who handled sound design, was going through the same hell. We were the last ones working late that Wednesday night. The weather outside didn't help. It was one of those cold early spring storms, heavy rain, wind howling through the alleyways, and lightning flashing every few minutes like a camera going off outside. By around 8:30 p.m., Lucas popped his head into my office and said, "Hey man, I'm out. You good to lock up?" I nodded, barely looking up from my screen. My code was a mess, and I was trying to get this one boss AI to stop walking straight into walls. "Don't stay too late," he added. "This place gets weird after hours," I laughed. Yeah. I'll finish up soon." Then he left. I heard the door shut behind him and the dull sound of his boots going down the stairs. Now, to understand the layout, the office was shaped like an L. The front door was at the top of the long part of the L, and my office was all the way down at the end of the short leg, near the back. That meant I was completely out of sight from the main door or the kitchen area. About 20 minutes after Lucas left, I was starting to doze off at my desk. My head kept nodding, and I was typing nonsense into my code editor. I decided I needed something warm to keep me going. So I got up, stretched, and headed down the hall to the kitchen to heat up a cup of coffee. I was leaning against the counter, waiting for the old microwave to warm my drink, when I heard a door shut somewhere behind me. It wasn't the front door. That thing was heavy and made a loud clunk when it closed. This sounded lighter, like one of the smaller office doors. I froze. It was late. Lucas was gone. No one else was supposed to be there. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I slowly peeked out into the hallway. All the lights were still on. Nothing looked out of place. I figured maybe a draft had pushed a door closed, though all the windows had been shut for weeks, ever since one of them leaked during a storm. Still, I wasn't taking any chances. I walked the long part of the L-shaped hallway, checking doors. Every single one was locked, just like we always left them after hours. Then I turned down the short hallway, my hallway. All 3 office doors were shut, mine included. That stopped me cold. I always left my door open when I stepped out. Always. And it hadn't just drifted halfway closed. It was firmly shut. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at it. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe I had shut it without thinking. Maybe the building shifted with the wind. Old buildings do that, right? But my gut said otherwise. It felt like someone had closed it. On purpose. I walked back, heart pounding a little, and flung the door open fast, half expecting Lucas to jump out yelling, "Gotcha!" But no, nothing. My office looked exactly how I'd left it. Chair slightly pushed back. Monitors glowing, notes scattered across the desk. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air felt heavier. My skin was prickling like I was being watched. Trying to push it out of my mind, I went back to work. The storm was getting louder outside, and every time lightning flashed, it cast these weird shadows across the walls. I kept glancing over my shoulder. Then, sometime after 10 p.m., I decided to call it a night. I was exhausted and honestly a little rattled. I saved my work, backed everything up, and started shutting down. That's when it happened. I turned off my monitor, and the screen went black. In the reflection, just behind me, I saw a woman. She was standing there, just standing. Her skin looked pale, like she hadn't seen sunlight in years. Her hair was dark and stringy, hanging in wet clumps. And her eyes, God, her eyes, they were wide and glassy, like she wasn't blinking. Like she wasn't alive. I couldn't move, I didn't turn around, I didn't scream, I don't even know how, but I managed to calmly grab my bag, stand up, and walk to the door. I acted like I hadn't seen anything at all. I didn't want her to know I saw her. Once I turned the corner out of my hallway, I ran. I ran like my life depended on it. Down the hallway, down the stairs, out the building into the rain. My shoes slipped on the wet concrete and I almost ate it, but I kept going. I didn't stop until I got to my car. I fumbled with the keys, got inside, locked the doors, and just sat there shaking. I looked up at the window. The light in my office was still on, and I swear on everything. I saw the blinds shift slightly, like someone was standing there peeking through them, watching me. I called Danny, our project lead, right then and there. She picked up half asleep and I blurted out everything. She was quiet for a second, then said, "No one else was supposed to be there. I'll call security and have them check it out." I drove home. I didn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., Danny called me back, said the night guard checked the office top to bottom. "No signs of anyone," she said. "Doors all locked. Nothing broken." I told her again what I saw. She didn't laugh. She didn't brush it off. She just said, "You need to get some rest." The next morning I went in late. I didn't want to, but I had to finish my work. When I got there, I checked the security camera feed. There's only one camera in the office, above the kitchen looking down the long hallway. I watched the footage from the night before. You can see me walking back and forth. You can see me going to the kitchen. You can see Lucas leaving. But you never see the woman, not once, except right before I ran out of the building. Just a few frames before the timestamp when I sprinted out the hall. The lights in my hallway flicker, just for a second. And if you pause it at the exact right moment, there's a shadow. It doesn't move like a normal person. It's just there, like a smudge on the frame. Wrong. We checked the camera later that week, cleaned the lens, tested it. Nothing wrong. No one else ever saw her. But I still get this feeling sometimes when I'm working late. Like something standing just behind me, watching. And I never turn off the monitor all the way anymore. Let me tell you about the job that made me never want to work security again. This happened back in 2022, when I was working as an overnight security guard at an old office building in downtown Camden Falls. You probably haven't heard of it. It's a small, sleepy town in Pennsylvania where nothing ever really happens. That's what I thought too, until that week in November. I had just turned 24, still living with my older cousin Mike. He got me the job. Said it was easy money and mostly just sitting around watching cameras. He wasn't wrong. Most nights I'd sit behind the front desk, scrolling through my phone, sipping lukewarm coffee, and occasionally making rounds. The building was old, like 1970s old. Flickering lights, peeling paint, weird hums in the pipes. Kinda creepy on its own, but nothing I couldn't handle. But this one night, November 14th, I remember it too well. It was cold, windy, one of those nights where everything feels a little off and the silence stretches too long. Around 8 p.m., a woman from one of the top floor offices, a small dental practice, came downstairs. Her name was Angela. She was always nice, always brought leftover cupcakes from the break room. But that night she looked pale, shaken. "There's something weird in the basement," she said, kind of whispering. I blinked. Like, weird how? "All the lights are off," she said.
"And the elevator won't go down."
I was going to get the Christmas stuff from storage, but it's pitch black down there. At first I thought it was just a blown fuse or something, until she added, "Oh, and some of the doors down there look broken, like someone tried to bust them open." That got my attention. Now, you gotta understand, I wasn't trained for real danger. I didn't have a weapon, just a flashlight and a radio that barely worked. But I was the only one on duty, and the maintenance crew wouldn't be in until the morning. So yeah, I had to check it out. I took the flashlight from the desk drawer, clipped my ID badge to my hoodie, and headed for the stairwell. The elevator really was dead. It wouldn't even open when I pressed the button for the basement. So I opened the heavy stairwell door and started down the creaky, dimly lit stairs. The deeper I went, the colder it got. And I don't just mean chilly. I mean the kind of cold that feels wrong. It's like the air was heavier, thicker somehow. The basement had always felt off to me. Too quiet. It was supposed to be just storage. Old desks, janitor supplies, boxes of paper towels, random decorations. but it was built like a maze with twisty hallways and dozens of doors leading to small storage rooms. No cameras, of course. Just concrete walls, a low ceiling, and that awful smell, like wet wood and rust. When I pushed open the basement door at the bottom of the stairs, my flashlight flickered. Great. Of course it did. But it stayed on long enough for me to take a few steps into the darkness. That's when I saw the first door. It was bent inward, like something had kicked it hard over and over again until the frame cracked. The lock was broken clean off. Inside was a cluttered storage room full of holiday stuff. Plastic snowmen, garlands, strings of lights. All untouched. Then I turned the corner and saw 2 more doors, both splintered, hanging off their hinges. Inside those rooms, everything still looked untouched. No theft, no mess, just broken doors and that cold, unnatural stillness. I was about to call it in when I heard it. A loud bang. Like a heavy metal door slamming shut. Somewhere deeper in the basement, I froze. The weird thing? It wasn't just the sound. It was what came after. Total silence. The faint hum I'd been hearing, pipes maybe, or an old boiler, was just gone. Like someone flipped a switch and shut the entire basement off. That silence felt alive. Like it was pressing in around me. I whispered, "Hello?" My voice barely made a sound. It felt swallowed up by the dark, and that's when I started hearing footsteps. Slow ones, crunching lightly on gravel or broken glass. Not mine. Someone or something was down here. I backed up, flashlight shaking in my hand, aiming it at every hallway entrance. Shadows danced across the walls, and I swore. For just a second, I saw a figure move past the end of one hallway, not walking, gliding. I tried calling up to the front desk on my radio, but all I got was static. I should have turned around right then. I should have run back up the stairs and locked the door. But I was too curious, too scared, too frozen to move. Then I heard breathing. Deep. Heavy. Ragged. Like someone was gasping for air. Right around the next corner. I didn't even want to move, but I tiptoed closer. My shoes barely touched the floor. Heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. When I peeked around the corner, I almost screamed. There. Standing about 10 feet away was a person. No. A thing facing the wall. It was huge. At least 7 feet tall, hunched over with its back to me. It was holding something. Long, metallic, almost like a crowbar or pipe. Its arms were long, too long, and its skin looked pale, almost gray. Like it had never seen sunlight. And then it moved. It turned its head slightly, just enough for me to see part of its face. It didn't look human. The face was stretched, the features too far apart. And its eyes, those sunken, empty eyes, locked onto me like it had been waiting. I didn't wait to see more. I spun around and ran faster than I ever have. I yelled, "The cops are coming! You need to get out!" But my voice cracked halfway through. I bolted up the stairs 2 at a time, flung open the basement door, slammed it shut, and locked it. I was shaking so bad I could barely dial 911. The dispatcher asked if I was in danger. I couldn't even answer. I just kept saying, "Someone's down there. Something's down there." About 10 minutes later, 3 police cruisers showed up. 4 officers went down into the basement, flashlights ready, guns drawn. They didn't find anything, not a single thing. No broken doors, no footprints, no signs anyone had ever been there, except the doors were broken. I saw them. And later, when an electrician came to fix the lights, he confirmed someone had messed with the circuit breaker, said it looked like it had been ripped apart from the inside. The basement lights came back on, but I didn't go back down there. Ever. A week later, I quit. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that thing's face, those hollow eyes, that twisted body. And sometimes, even now, I wake up in the middle of the night convinced there's someone standing in the corner of my room, watching, waiting. And sometimes, I hear breathing. Let me tell you a story that still gives me chills every time I think about it. It happened a long time ago, back in the summer of 2010. I had just turned 19, and like most broke college kids, I needed a job. My best friend Carla and I got lucky and got hired together at a small customer service center in the town of Red Hill. Now, this wasn't some shiny downtown skyscraper. The call center was in an old, kinda creepy building on the edge of town. It used to be a hospital in the 70s, and Honestly, it still felt like one. Even though they'd done some renovations, there were parts of the building that still smelled like old bleach and something weird. Mold, maybe? Or something worse. We worked the graveyard shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and that alone made everything feel off. The building got eerily quiet around 1 or 2 in the morning. Lights buzzed. Pipes creaked. Sometimes we'd hear footsteps in the hallway, even though everyone was supposed to be at their desks. You'd look up and no one was there. The office itself had this weird layout. Picture a big, hollow rectangle. The center was the main lobby and elevator area, and the office space wrapped around it like a square donut. One long side had the production floor. Bright lights, desks, phones ringing, people talking. That part was normal. The other side, though, completely unfinished. Half renovated, mostly dark, and definitely not a place people like to walk through. That abandoned wing was supposed to have a bunch of stuff. Conference rooms, the storage closet, a restroom, and the nurse's office. But it was clear nobody had touched it in a while. Concrete floors, wires sticking out from holes in the wall, tools left behind, some broken chairs piled in a corner, creepy stuff. And yet the nurse's office was supposedly over there. You'd see the sign above a closed door when you went to the restroom. A plain metal door with a narrow window and nurse stenciled in black letters. It always looked locked, always dark. Carla and I would joke about it, saying stuff like, if I collapse from exhaustion, just drag me over there and knock until a ghost answers. But then, one night, something happened. It was a Wednesday, 2 weeks into our shift rotation. Carla hadn't been feeling well all day. She'd been nursing a headache since she got to work, and by 1:30 a.m. she was pale and barely able to keep her eyes open. "You should go lie down in the nurse's room," I said. She gave me a look. "That creepy-ass place? It's probably fine. I'll go with you," I said. I wasn't totally confident myself, but I didn't want her passing out at her desk either. So we told our shift lead, Martin, and he waved us off. "Just let the nurse know what's going on. If you're gone too long, I'll come check," he said. So Carla and I grabbed our hoodies, stepped away from the warm, well-lit production floor, and walked down the dark hallway toward the abandoned side of the building. And let me tell you, that hallway was different. The temperature dropped as soon as we turned the corner. It wasn't just air conditioning cold. It felt unnatural. The kind of cold that makes your teeth ache and your bones feel hollow. The lights in the hallway flickered every few seconds like they were trying to hold on. Shadow shifted as we walked. Everything echoed louder than it should have. Our footsteps, the soft swish of our jackets, even the sound of Carla sniffing. It all bounced off the empty walls like the building was listening. Finally, we reached the nurse's office. Just like always, the door was closed, but the lights inside were on. I peeked through the narrow glass window and saw what looked like a normal clinic setup. Metal bed with a white sheet, a desk, a chair, even a cabinet filled with supplies. No nurse, though. I knocked softly. No answer. We waited a minute. Still nothing. "Maybe they stepped out," Carla said. "Let's just go in," I said. "If you pass out in the hall, they'll definitely call security." The door was locked, so we decided to wait and come back later. We walked back, grabbed tea from the vending machine, and returned maybe 25-30 minutes later. But when we got back, something was different. The hallway was darker, dead quiet, not even the flickering lights now, just shadows. The nurse's office? The light was off, I didn't even think. I just reached for the door handle, and this time, it opened. What we saw inside wasn't the same room, no bed, no cabinet, no desk. Just a bare cold concrete room with no finishes. A single nightlight, probably from some forgotten extension cord, cast a weak orange glow from the corner, barely enough to see that the walls were unfinished. You could still see the outline where wires stuck out, where something had once been mounted. "Wait," Carla whispered. "Is this the same room?" "It has to be," I said, even though I was doubting myself. "That's the sign. Same door." She stepped in slowly, and I followed, feeling my skin crawl. The air felt thick, like we were walking into a place we weren't supposed to be. My ears popped. I know how weird that sounds, but it's like the pressure shifted, like we crossed into another version of the building. Then we both heard it, a faint sound from behind us. Not footsteps. Not breathing. It was a humming. A soft, slow hum like someone singing to themselves. But it wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside the room, somewhere in the darkness behind the wall. We both froze. And then the nightlight flickered. Just once. And in that moment of darkness, we heard something drag across the floor. Not fast, not loud, just a slow scrape. Carla grabbed my arm so hard her nails dug into my skin. "We need to go," she whispered. I didn't argue. We ran out of that room like our lives depended on it. We didn't stop until we hit the lights of the production floor, gasping, sweating, panicked. The guard at the hallway checkpoint saw us and actually stood up. "What the hell happened to you two?" he asked. We tried to explain what we saw. The room, the missing clinic. The noise, he frowned. "That wing's been shut for months. There's no nurse assigned to this building. But the lights, there's no power routed there. We shut it off after that electrician fell through the ceiling last year." Carla and I just looked at each other. "There was a clinic," I insisted. "We saw it," he shook his head slowly. "Maybe you saw what used to be there. We reported everything to Martin when we got back."
He didn't laugh.
He didn't even speak. Just sat there staring at us. A few minutes later, Carla started crying. Not just tears. She was sobbing, shaking, struggling to breathe. They had to call an ambulance. She got taken to Red Hill General and stayed overnight. They said it was stress, maybe a panic attack. But Carla told me later, once she was calm, that when the light flickered off, she saw something standing in the corner of the room. Just for a second, a figure, pale face, no eyes, wearing a nurse's uniform. But when the light came back, it was gone. We never talked about it again. Even now, I don't know what we saw that night. But I've never gone back to that building. And if you ever find yourself in Red Hill, and someone offers you a night shift job in the old hospital-turned office, say no, just trust me.